Good evening. We are so glad that you are here this evening, and I think that you're in for a great treat. It is my honor and my privilege to be able to introduce our special guest this evening. It's especially a blessing for me because years ago, when this young man was but a youth in our youth group, became best friends with my son. So I not only saw him at church, but I also saw him a lot in my house. And that's right, they did. No, just kidding. But it was a chance for me to watch him grow and for his talents to develop. He's very musically gifted. But tonight, Davidson and his amazing family, Katie, who is amazing in her own right, and the gifts that she brings to this family and to their ministry together. And past all of that, the special gifts that God has blessed him with, and the call that God has placed on their lives, tonight I want you to go away being able to see his heart. Because he has a heart for God, and he has a heart for people. Please welcome Davidson and Katie Jean-Rejouis.
Well, good evening. To begin this evening, I want to open with a song, because worship for me is the way that I communicate with the Lord. And of course, we had to pass down our talents and gifting to our children. So today it is my two girls that's going to sing and lead us into the singing. They're going to be singing a song for us in French, and at the end I will explain to you what they're singing. Voilà. I remember the first time they helped me lead worship in church about 2 years to see what God is doing in them. And the fact that now we can sing and worship the Lord in French is fantastic. So the song that you just heard is actually speaking. It was perfect time for us. The reason why we learned this singing was during COVID. A lot was going on in France. France was fully locked down. And the song says, when the mountains are falling deep into the ocean. It says, when the mountains are falling deep into the ocean, God is going to do all of it. He's going to hold us together. And he goes, yes, my love will not go far from you. And this is God speaking to us. So in the culture in France that has no hope, this was very important for them to understand that though it seems like the world may be going into darkness, but God is there. His love is not going to go far from you. So that's why we just sent it for you tonight. So to continue this evening, what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a quick plan. I want to show you guys a quick video of what's been going on in France. This is stories of our teams and friends. And after this little video, I want to share with you a bit more of what we've been doing, what God's been doing through us, and how, because of you, we've been able to be your hands and feet in France. But right now, I want to give you attention to this video. The sound is coming at the wrong spot.
Team in Toulouse, France. We've been working here since 2014, and we see God at work.
I have a new friend. She started coming to our church this year. She is a mom of triplets from Cameroon.
Colonel Ryan is a retired French paratrooper, shaved head, the whole 9 yards. He's the dad of one of our neighbors. And since his retirement, he has been very curious about the God of the Bible.
She and her family started coming to our church, but they were struggling.
Sonia, she was so on fire for her faith that she shared it with her husband Patrick, who came over a period of about a year and a half.
About 6 months ago, I was asked to lead a Bible study for the women in our church. But usually this is a comfortable territory for me. This needed to be done in French. And out of all the people on our team, I'm the one who struggles most with the language.
I first met Tom when I was at an open mic night at a bar where I usually play on Thursday nights. And Tom came up to us because he heard us speak English. And he wanted to know why we were so joyful. And we had this thing about us that was just joy, and we wanted to be part of that.
Then Sonia started sharing with her family, her mother and her brothers. And one Sunday, her mother came to church. She's like 85 years old.
I think it was the last Sunday of October, All Saints Day. The coronavirus cases were peaking. The government had announced a new lockdown that would begin that Monday. And to make matters worse, the week before there had been a violent terrorist attack at a church in Nice, and the government was worried about the possibility of more attacks.
This has been a crazy year for all of us, and often we think about the little ditty, open and close them, put them in your lap. Here we have the church opening and closing in seconds, and we had to figure out how to minister to children.
She, myself, and another woman started praying together regularly every week. Even during the confinement, if we couldn't get together, we were online together praying.
So I had an opportunity during the COVID, in between COVID confinements, to explain through different passages in the Bible the gospel of salvation.
So she came this one Sunday. She was suffering with shingles, and she asked us to pray for her. So we prayed over her, elders, and the next week she was better. We thought God was really at work. He's going to change her heart.
We were considered not staying home with the kids that way.
I didn't think anyone was going to come to church. I prayed that morning, Lord, is this nuts? What are we doing here? I doubted that anyone other than missionaries would even show up.
Through this confinement, when we've been stuck at our homes, and we have been able to pray and read the Bible and study together via Zoom, which has been such a blessing for us.
All the schools were closed, children were not allowed to go to school, and then all of a sudden the government said, no, this doesn't seem to work for children, and they opened up the schools. So we decided to go ahead and go with our vacation Bible school that we had been planning, and in 2 weeks we had it put together, amazing.
I had just seen her trust in
And this is something because God has convinced him that his word is the truth, that he accepts this as truth.
And then all of a sudden, she stopped coming to church. And we couldn't figure it out. She just pulled back off from us.
We had a child come who was hearing impaired, who had never heard the gospel before, and her parents were interested in the church. We had another child come to the program who had friends in the church and came for the first time to the church.
But everyone came. All the families in our church, all the singles. We had a full house. So till this day, Tom and I, we still hang out, we still talk, and I look forward to see what God does in this relationship.
And she wants to work in the church now. She wants to be part of children's ministry. And she wants to be doing evangelism next summer once this stupid confinement period is over. So I'm just really excited about what God's been doing in her life.
It's been a huge encouragement to me.
This story doesn't necessarily have a happy ending, but we continue to pray and we continue to witness to this family.
Some of the women in the church stop and ask us questions about what we studied, and it's made them grow closer to the Lord, and it's been just awesome to see.
We see God working daily, as even in the midst of all the confusion of COVID.
I've set an alarm on my phone so I can pray for Tom every Tuesday that he may come to know the Lord.
In spite of a difficult year and difficult circumstances, we have a group that has a heart to worship together and to be in the Lord's house together.
This experience has really just built my faith knowing that God is at work and is growing his church and is moving.
This experience reminded me not to be afraid, not to give in to fear, to worry, to trust that the Lord is working and will take care of us regardless of what happens.
Sometimes God is going to bring people into my life who want to hear the good news of the gospel.
This experience has changed me because I have to fall on my knees every day, every minute of the day, because I have to trust the Lord in the midst of it.
This experience has really encouraged me, seeing that a young man that is starting a new business continue to pursue a relationship with me and wanting to know a little bit more about who God is.
This experience continues to lead me to the fact that I need to be fully reliant on the Lord. And then amazing things happen.
We have a church body that loves worship together, that loves to be together, desires to grow, to know the Lord more, and particularly to know the Lord more together as a community. It's a beautiful thing.
Perfect. I'll use this. I invite my wife to come up a little bit, please. Is this one better? This one's better. So these was just a few of the stories of the things that are happening in France. There's so many more stories that we could share with you. But what I've done, I've created a small slide with 10 pictures to kind of give us topics to talk to you about. Well, so we didn't want to spend 5 hours speaking with you here. We can, but we won't. This is my wife. I want to take a moment to publicly say this woman has been my anchor, my encourager, my hope. The things that are happening in France and the responsibilities that were placed upon me during my time in France, without her, I don't think I would have succeeded in all of it. So this woman is like my hero and my supporter, my encourager. So thank you, baby. I just wanted them to know that. So to begin, I want to tell you a bit more what we're doing. So we spent 4 years in France, and the goal was to go and help plant a church in the area of Toulouse, France, which is south of France. But the first year, we were supposed to go and learn the language. So we spent 1 year in the Alps just studying French. And right after that 1 year, I'm going to skip over really fast for you, why this picture. 1 year later, we're supposed to do an internship. So once you learn the language, you have to go then apply that language outside of where you're going to do ministry. Because the French is a culture of intellect. So if you enter into the place where you're going to minister and you do not sound educated, they will close you off. You will not be welcome, and it will be very difficult to even make an impact. So in France, first impression is everything. So even if I was learning the language, my language got better, I still needed, or you would still need to continue to learn the language. So this picture is doing my internship. So I got involved and I was helping with the children's choir. This church was a bigger church. Besides the children's choir, this is the only picture I want to show you guys. I was running also the worship ministry, and I was also working with youth as well, doing all time in France. But this is one of the pictures that I want to share with you. And right in the middle, you can see Esme right there in the middle. I believe Sarah is hiding somewhere, right in front of her. But Esme was always saying, I'm gonna sing. Like, okay, so let's sing. So a second year was a year of internship where we were learning how Christianity functioned in France. Did I forget anything? Is there anything you want to add? Okay. At the end, we had a baby that year. There you go. That's something you should fail to mention. This guy right here was born in X. A side story real quick. So we just learned language to be able to minister to the French. And then we found out that the Lord is going to bless us with the fourth child in France. So I found myself trying to learn, some medical terminology in French. What does it mean, trimester? What does it mean, she? This is 5 minutes in between contractions. So it was interesting speaking, but everything went well by God's grace, and he was born. And she did awesome. I'm looking at my wife, and I'm like, babe, she's asking you to do ABCD, but I'm speaking to her in French, and my wife is in pain, so she's not processing what's going on. She looks at me and she goes, English, please. But she didn't use those words, but I'm going to use those words here. But, yes. All right, so back on track. So besides an internship, when we arrived at the location where we were supposed to be helping with the church plans, we were in a little small room, and this room can only welcome 15 people. So for the first year, we were in a small room with about 15 of us, and 6 of us was just missionaries. We have a team, and we are 4 couples. So God was blessing our ministry. We arrived, and the church was growing, so we needed to transfer to a new building, and hence why was going on. So again, my job title was worship and discipleship training. And I found myself learning electrical. So this is me doing electrical. But thankfully, there's someone that was an expert in that area that was walking us through what to do. And no one got electrocuted. Praise the Lord. So we literally, all the light sockets, that was us that did it. I put a picture of the fun product. There's a last picture. I can find it for you later. Oh, yes, later. Okay. So there's one picture you will see how this building was literally, looks terrible. And then in a few, I think it was 6 months later, we were able to welcome people. And this room can now welcome 75. And we filled it up during Christmas. And for us, 75 is a mega church in France. So right now, our church went from 15 to 20. And then right before COVID, it went to 40. It doubled on numbers. So the Lord is growing the church. And even in the midst of difficulties, I'll let you guys ask me questions because I can tell you all the difficult things that happens doing ministry in France, teaching Jesus to a culture that is only 1% of the culture of believers. And out of that 1%, maybe 0.5% has a Bible in their home. And out of that 0.5%, maybe 0.2% are actually opening it and reading it. So this is why it is really, really, really important for missionaries to go and proclaim the gospel. I love it.
So I had the privilege of being asked to lead a Bible study for women, especially during the COVID time. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people couldn't go to work or had to work at home or had children at home. And it's rare that I haven't even known any women's Bible studies, especially during the day. And so it became a need, and I love teaching Bible, so I was very excited, and my teammates asked me to lead the Bible study, but then I was like, oh, but I have to do it in French. And so out of all the people on my team, I was the newest. Some of them have been there for 20 years, but that was just something I was comfortable with. And so it was just the Lord's way of stretching me. I told the Lord a long time ago, if anyone ever asked me to teach or speak about the Bible, I couldn't say no. So I was like, oh, but this is in French. So I had to put together a study. So I was just studying the Bible, reading it, putting it together, whatever I thought these women really needed to hear, make it simple. Because that's something, they don't study the Bible. It's, even though they're Protestants, they're still very influenced by a Catholic culture where you don't open your Bible. So they're used to, they go to church, you hear the pastor and the sermon, and that's it. You don't necessarily go open it. So I wanted to take them through verse by verse and explain it. So anyways, that was a fun time. I really enjoyed it. It was really, really stretched me. It stretched my French beyond conversation. So this was me leading. So I would read more than just like, hey, let's talk about it. It was very structured, which that might be Davidson, but that's not me. I like to blow with the wind and stuff like that. So I learned to be a little more structured. But it was awesome. So this is the ladies. We would pray, and it was a sweet time. We had their kids. There's some kids over here somewhere on the floor. So we're like, bring your kids. They can play on the floor while we study. And that was also a foreign concept to them. So that was a sweet time.
So the other aspect is that when the church started, we didn't have any musicians. So that was one of my prayers. Was the moment I arrived, I was praying that, Lord, please bring someone else that would take my place. So in ministry should be that you're working yourself out of a job. So it's like you're training the next person to see who has gifting in the areas to help the church. So I prayed for a year, and the Lord brought this individual into my life. But the story with him was so incredible during COVID. So I was helping him with training, playing guitar. But during COVID, I was the one that was doing all the video editing, all the online presence. Our church, we were actually the youngest couple on the team. So they knew nothing about technology. So it was upon me to do all the video editing, all the shooting of the sermons, all the recordings, and all the music. So much so, at one point, I got sick. I was so tired. I was up till 3 in the morning doing editing because our kids were at home during the day, and she had to homeschool them, which means I was helping because her French was a little bit, she needed a lot more work than mine. And so I was helping with school, and also I was doing church work. And I had to wait till the kids were asleep to change our living room. Went from school to a recording studio, to a place where people come. So the video that you saw that we showed was shot in our living room. So this living room was used as everything, prayer, a Bible study that you saw also previously. So this gentleman, he worked for Airbus, and Airbus is in Toulouse, and he was an engineer, and he knew technology. So we were able to tag team. So now he's the guy that's running the tech side in our church, but also helping with worship. That is God's provision. God is good. And we've been praying for an individual like this for so long, and he has provided. His name is, not to say it in English, Raphael. His name is Raphael. But in French it's Raphael. So this is us leading. So the point is, in training up leaders, is that you train with them, then you do it with them, and then you let them go, and then you stay behind them. So this was my next step on training him, is actually us leading worship together. And the next stage was for him to go ahead and do that by himself and being a support for him as he continues. Besides ministries being that we do worship, but we are missionaries, so we wanted to do community with the people that live around us. This is one of the families that we've met, so I'll let Katie share a little bit more about that.
This is also a sweet time for our kids to reminisce about what the Lord's been doing. So this is a family, they have 3 children, and each of them were in one of our children's class. And so we became really close to them. They are a Japanese family. Their kids speak Japanese, and we're learning French like ours, and the parents spoke Japanese and English. So there's all sorts of languages going on. We got together, it was a little bit English, a little bit of French, a little bit Japanese, all running around. But we always say, you don't have to necessarily be able to teach
teach the Bible. You don't have to have a seminary degree to go be a missionary. For instance, this family, we always had them over, and our kids always pray before their meals. One gets the responsibility for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner. So when their kids were over, our kids were always like, wait, we gotta pray. And they would pray. And so after a period of time, their parents came to me and said, our kids the other day, they came home and said, we can't eat until we pray. But we don't know how to pray, so they looked up online, how do you pray before your meal? And then they're like, but we found something and we weren't quite sure if it was right. And so we want to ask you before we teach our kids this, why do you say, thank you for dying for us? Why are we asking, is that right? You're thanking someone for, and it was just a sweet opportunity, obviously, to share the gospel that we didn't seek. We didn't go out saying, okay, they need to hear about Jesus. It was a natural, our kids played together, went to school together. So a lot of the opportunities as missionaries, even though we're planting churches, the evangelism side of it is just natural. Just being a Christian family is strange. It's attractive. It's why are you guys joyful? Why do you guys have hope? Why do you guys speak in this manner? And for us, we're just being functioning like a Christian family that we might not see sometimes in the States, especially if you're in a hub where everybody's acting like that. So outside of that, to the French, it is completely foreign when you see a family maybe even eat together, or definitely pray together, or be joyful together. So we still are in contact with them. It's just a sweet time. We've given them Bibles in Japanese, and just sat and yeah, it's been awesome.
We're getting used to this now. This is all you're ready to go.
Oh. So also, another thing I would do is, there's another friend that I just spent a lot of time with moms. And so this one, she loved to explore and go hiking and wander somewhere, and I usually had him with me. This time Davidson was with us, so he had the baby on the back. Usually I had this mountain stroller or carrying him around, and it's just another way that we would reach out and I would just evangelize to women. And we were kind of on a lockdown. You weren't really allowed to meet places, but you could go to parks. So it was a mom. So he was not allowed to go to, so he would do open mics and stuff in venues that were then closed. But I could still go and meet moms in the park. So yeah, so I did a lot of hiking and running. No, she liked to run. I didn't run with her. I was like, let's go walking.
Wow. So ministry during COVID was hard because one of my big areas of ministry was my music. So I would go to bars where I could prepare mic night. That's where I would meet the young guys. Besides that, also I was playing soccer. So sports was another way for me to get to know the community. So it was very tough, but God was also good in the midst of those difficulties. Right before COVID and everything closed down, I met with a group of men, and we were able to play soccer together. And we created a WhatsApp group, and we continue to communicate even till today. We can see, yes, it was difficult, but God still was opening doors. So this is a picture of a house tuning into a recording studio. The kids were literally, it was God's grace because their bedroom was right next door. House is not soundproof. So Papa was singing on the top of his lungs, and they're still asleep. I think they got used to it. The first night was difficult, but I felt like they just got to get used to it. So this is me working at, I think it was 2 in the morning here, while the kids were sleeping. So this is a picture of a church. Right next door is a small building that we're meeting, and then we changed this right before we left. God has provided for us this. And the sign was actually donated to us. And there was another church that were changing their cross, and they also donated this cross for us, which saved us a lot in the budget of the church. So all these little things are God providing for us in the midst of difficulties. And this is a beautiful family. Am I forgetting anything? There's so much I could share, but I want you to open the floor up for questions. And whoever asks questions, you get a piece of French candy. As you,
We're going to ask the kids to come up. They're going to hand them out.
they're gonna have send out the candies. So, I mean, you don't need to take the candy because my 8-year-old was saying if they want to take it, but you can still ask questions. We studied French in the Alps. It was where they had the 1992 Olympics, Winter Olympics. It's Albertville. That's what it was.
How do you give Bibles to them in their native language? Do you have to order them online, or do they have them that you're able to buy them locally for them? Or how do you get Bibles to them, those that want them?
Yeah. But thankfully, there is a Protestant, community in France. It's small, but it exists. So the church exists in France. So because of that, there were already Bibles in French. The Bible was even printed in the language and they could understand. So it was easy to find Bibles. We even had Bibles in our church that anyone that wants it can come and just have one.
Do they have study Bibles as well?
Yes, they do. They were starting to translate a lot of materials from us. For example, Tim Keller, he's often in France teaching, so he has a translator. And most of his books are translated also in French. They even have, what do you call it? Right now, I only remember it in French, Évangile 21. Évangile 21, how do you say it? The Gospel, Gospel 21. So they also have a version, a French version of that.
Where do you get your support?
Yes, our support is usually mostly from individuals. So church and individuals where we got our main financial support. It was by God's grace. It was individuals and churches. I believe we have about five churches that supported us financially, and after that, everything else were individuals that supported us. And some of you are in here. So, good question. Yes. Okay. You have a question? You have a question?
No, he wants to answer. Andy, question.